Welcome to the first Net Profit Tennis podcast of 2016. It's a brand new tennis season. I'm Niall.
I'm Dar.
And brand new year, brand new season. Lots of shit to look forward to.
Yep, loads of bets to look forward to.
Yeah, and happy new year.
And you?
Yeah, it's good to be talking here. I was talking to our many listeners though.
Well, you say many
listeners.
Yeah, many listeners.
I'm sure they're returning many New Year's wishes back towards us.
Absolutely true. It's a bit late, but
it's a little bit late, but
we appreciate the sentiment.
The season is basically starting now with tennis. We've had a few days of 250 tournaments.
We have,
which in our scope isn't bettable for obvious reasons. Atomic, basically just proven why we don't bet on 250 tournaments,
which we might get back to.
I mean, we might get back to a little bit later on. Yeah, no, a big talking point.
Yeah,
but I think we're just going to get stuck into a bit of a tournament wrap up. The last couple of weeks, there wasn't much of a rest between. I suppose the World Tour finals and just straight back into it after a couple of weeks. And we had the first tournament of the season was Doha, where in the final Djokovic really did destroy Nadal, 6-1, 6-2.
It's not something I like to think about too much.
You're a big Nadal fan. How would you feel about him getting to the final and then getting wiped off the face of the earth?
I thought he was playing really well throughout the tournament, which he was. But it just goes to show you how far off beating Djokovic he is, despite playing really well and being confident, etc. It just seems to be a mindset thing when he plays against someone like Djokovic, and he falls a long way short of the mark. And I mean, I suppose we were kind of saying before that unless you're going to play like what Rinka did at Roland Garros and really beat Djokovic pound for pound, there's not really
literally physically.
Yeah, there's no tactical way at the moment. It seems like Djokovic has come through the Asian swing last year. He's obviously started this year right the way he left last year.
Exactly, just like there was no break at all.
No. And he's one of the players I think who probably had a slightly longer break than some of the other guys. I don't think he was at the IPT thing.
No, he wasn't. But I think he did play some exhibition stuff. Did he? Possibly, I can't remember. But I mean, yeah, he wasn't at the.
He probably had a slightly more of a break than other players. But at the same time, he's just like started the season right the way he left last year. It's like it's rolled into the new year in style. And Rafa, yeah, he's been good for the last 6 months, say last year, but still nowhere near beating the likes of Djokovic. And it's a fairly embarrassing defeat, really. But in the grand scheme of things,
I mean, is a defeat to Djokovic ever embarrassing? I mean, it's a predictable result. But I thought Nadal had a fairly comfortable route to that final. I think if he'd had the opponents that Djokovic had getting to the final, I don't think he would have made it, to be honest.
But he's been getting to finals, though.
He has.
In all his recent tournaments, he's been getting to finals. He's just come up against one stumbling block, and that's in the form of Novak Djokovic.
Unfortunately, Djokovic is a hurdle for just about every single player.
Yeah,
he is a hurdle for every single player on tour at the moment. But yeah, I suppose Djokovic back to his winning ways, straight in.
No change.
No hesitation, just straight back into it. In that tournament, Ferrer was knocked out in the first round.
That was a disappointment.
That was a disappointment, yeah. Because, Ferrer's getting on now in age, but to me, he's always been a reliable, predictable player. It was a little bit disappointing to see him get knocked out first round, but we'll see how he goes. He is playing with a new racket, which, I don't know if it's had much of a negative effect. It's kind of hard to tell, but he was honest about it. He said his serve was just not up to par for that tournament. Nothing to do with his new racket. Then we had the Brisbane. We had Raonic beating Federer in the final, which I watched a lot of Raonic's highlights. He had a really good tournament. Like, he's a really really powerful player. Blew Djokovic away, Federer away in the final.
I saw the highlights myself and thought the same thing. Yeah, he looked comfortable.
Now Federer was apparently suffering from a bit of a flu and whatnot, but who wasn't in that part of the world for the past couple of weeks? Everyone is dropping like flies with flu.
Yeah,
it's quite crazy.
But at the same time, Raonic, I mean, he's a player we've known has been up there prior to last season's injuries, and maybe it hit his world ranking spot places a little bit. He's definitely a top, probably 6-7 player.
I think so. I think he had serious back injury problems last year. I think this could be his year to really go for it.
Return to form, I definitely could see a return to form there. He'd be one of the players I'd be liking to see in the top probably 6-7 places by the end of the season, with maybe, unfortunately, players like I could see Ferrer falling out there, and probably maybe Nishikori if his injury problems continue, then he might be another player to fall out as well. But
I guess if Raonic can keep injury concerns at bay, I think we can see him doing really well this year. He moves well. He's got a huge serve, like obviously not the biggest serve on tour, but it's powerful.
Yeah,
and he's just a very powerful player. I think he surprised Federer, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Then we had Chennai, hopefully you're pronouncing that properly, where
Chennai,
Wawrinka beat Cornick 6-3, 7-5. I think Wawrinka had no trouble in that tournament. It's probably the weakest field of players in a tournament.
Cork was very poor in that final as well.
I didn't see much about that one, but I think that field of players was very weak for that tournament. So, not a big surprise there. But Wawrinka, again, a player to look at this year as well. Obviously, he won the French Open last year. Was it a fluke? Well, did he just have a really good week?
I think it was probably a combination of every player, no matter how good they are, will have one off day, and if you're not literally firing on all cylinders on that day, you maybe until Djokovic does start somewhat of a decline or has a bit of a bad patch shoe injury, maybe no one else is going to have an opportunity like Wawrinka did that day. But it remains to be seen. I mean, he's up there to be beaten, and no one can seem to get anywhere near him. But Wawrinka did that day.
I mean, in fairness, like Federer, Nadal, and Nishikori, no one won a slam last year other than Djokovic and Wawrinka. He was the man to do it.
He was.
I did watch one of his opening matches in that tournament. I can't remember who he's playing against, but he looks powerful. He looks good.
He does.
So
he does.
I'm hoping he has a good year this year because he seems like a damn nice guy. So.
He doesn't look like a tennis player, though.
No, he doesn't. He looks like he's stumbled out of the pub, had to knock a ball around, to be honest.
Like if somebody threw a rugby ball at him, you'd expect him to catch it before returning a tennis ball.
Classic match would be Wawrinka against Sock. They're just two lads that just seem to have a few pounds on them. And he still moves so well, though.
It's funny, though, because he kind of reminds me of, it's a little bit, I suppose, off topic, but there's a footballer called Shaqiri who plays in the Premiership now, but he's also from Switzerland. And they just have this blockiness about them. And they just don't look like athletes, but they are.
All that Swiss chocolate, man. Just constantly.
That must be the reason. It has to be.
Yeah. So then we moved into, we had Auckland as well. Yeah, we had, that was a bit of a weird one, really. Sock retired after 22 minutes in the final against Agut.
Yeah.
So it was 6-1, and then, Sock retired.
The flu again.
Flu.
Yeah.
Seemed to be doing the rounds big time. Like, Federer, obviously, like we said, he had a bit of a thing going on as well. But Agut deserved to win. He beat Tsonga 3-6, 7-6, 6-4. That was a really good win. I don't think anyone take that away from Tsonga. Was, I think, full health. There was an issue with his arm before that tournament, but
we'll get to that in a while as well.
It was a decent win. Then I suppose we had Sydney, which is one of the more interesting tournaments, which leads us right up to pre-Australian Open, where Troicki beat Dimitrov 2-6, 6-1, 7-6.
A surprise result. I
don't know. Troicki was defending champion there. He won there last year, which I didn't realise.
No, I didn't either. Did you think there's a certain element of Dimitrov maybe preserving himself just a little bit to frustrate? No,
I don't think so. I think it was apparently it was a very good match. Troicki defended a match point in the last set, a tie break, which I think is disappointing for Dimitrov. He just couldn't put him away. I think if he another
day he might have done it.
If he was reserving himself, that wouldn't make sense because he had his chance there to take him out. And of course, the big news from that tournament was Tomic having a bit of a
meltdown as only he can.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was a meltdown, but I wrote a little blog there on the website, profitbets.com, about how generally when a player tanks, it's usually there's an excuse. It's wrapped up in an excuse like ankle injury, arm injury. Tomic on court in front of everybody, in front of the cameras, in front of microphones, just said exactly what was on his mind. He talked about how he's concerned about ranking points. He wanted to do well in the Australian Open. He said he was tired. He just put it all out there and made it clear that the reason for his retirement was purely he wanted to do well in the Australian Open.
It's unusual. It's very unusual for a player to not have some sort of an excuse beyond what's really on his mind.
Well, you see, I think a lot of these kind of retirements and tanks, these are the real reasons why players retire.
Yeah.
They're looking at their ranking points, they're looking at their draw. Tomic admitted that while he was warming up in his match against Gabashvili, which is what he retired from, he was checking his phone for the Australian draw because it was coming out that morning. And he got the notification that he was playing, who was he up against? Istamine, yeah. And he thought, right, that's a great draw. That was it. That pushed him over. He decided then and there during the warm-up that he was going to tank. I'm kind of glad that Tomic was honest about it and just said it. And he confirmed all those suspicions in the press conference.
Yeah, it does.
And people gave him a bit of shit time about, so casually just retiring. But at least he was honest about it, and he came out. He didn't just blame flu. He could easily have said, I feel sick, got flu, I'm going. See, at least he gave his reasons,
But there's the pros and cons. There's being honest and maybe sometimes being a bit too honest in that, like, he's showing up, he's getting appearance fees, he's there to play a game of tennis. People are showing up to that game, paying their money to see what they expect is going to be an exciting match, and then ultimately the match at say 60-70% of the way through the game, maybe less, depending on how long it was going to go for, is over because one player decides, oh, actually, by the way, my schedule is so busy, I need to be somewhere else. It's not great. Like,
and absolutely from a fan's point of view, and from the tournament director's point of view, it's terrible. I mean, Tomac would have been the biggest draws there. You know, it's his home. I don't know if Sydney's his home city, but home country.
Yeah, he would have been fancy to win it, if anything.
Absolutely, and he could have.
Yeah,
he absolutely could have. I mean,
and I think that's probably the thing from his perspective. He was thinking, I can go as far as I want in this. I can win this game if I want. I can get another match. He'll basically be there to the end if he wants, and he didn't want to be there to the end, so he figured he might as well just go early.
And look at his point of view. He wins that tournament. He gets 250 ranking points. I'm not sure how deep it is to get 250 ranking points in a slam, but it's not much.
Too far,
it's one or two matches. Like,
yeah.
Now, anyone who was following Tomac the week before Sydney would have heard a quote from him where he said something along the lines of, he'd like to have a full week's rest before the Australian Open. He said that before Sydney. I mean, that should have got alarm bells ringing. Like, that was it was clear Tomac wasn't in the mindset to play Sydney. And of course, when that favourable draw, as he puts it, remains to be seen. But when that favourable draw got released,
we hope favourable draw.
Yeah, when that favourable draw got released, obviously his mind was made up, and that was it.
Yeah,
but it was interesting the way he did it out on court to Lahani, that umpire. He just had a chat on court, said, "Look, listen, I'm off. Got better things to be doing. See yous." Fair play, Tomac. Good man. So yeah, that's a bit of a wrap up of the last few tournaments, the last couple of weeks before the Australian Open. I think that you're going to have a bit of news about changes of coaches.
There's been a fair bit of it over the last while. There's been a fair few changes of coaches. I'll just go through. I suppose I've got a few here. Notable changes anyway. Bona Courage is a new coach. Miles McLagan, former coach of Andy Murray. He had been working with a guy, Thomas Johansson, on a short-term basis, supposedly just from the Nice ATP. But he's brought in Miles McLagan as a permanent coach now, so we'll have to see what he can do to try and, I mean, obviously it's an interesting project from his perspective because he knows he's one of the big up and coming guys, probably got the potential to...
I think is he the highest ranked teenager?
Yeah, I think so,
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
I mean, he's only 18 years old, isn't he?
Oh, man, what was I doing when I was 18 years old?
I mean, to be actually considered to be, he's been mentioned the same, like, sort of breadth as all the other upcoming players who he's probably 3, 4, 5 years younger than some of them that they haven't properly broke through yet. I mean, huge potential there. Another player, as we were saying earlier on, we're expecting a return to form, hopefully this year, Milos Raonic. So Ljubicic was his coach up until quite recently, December. Carlos Moyes come in as his coach. Supposedly Ljubicic has joined Federer's team.
Now, he's in there.
Now apparently Severin Luthi, who's the existing head coach for Federer, is going to remain in his
so keeping part of his team,
his role, but he's going to join the coaching team in place, I believe, of Stefan Edberg. So yeah, it's positive.
Federer was asked in the press conference there yesterday, is the Australian Open a good time for experimentation? You know, it's the first Open of the year, and he said, yeah, especially with his new new coach, and we could see a few new tactical changes to the Fed game.
Be interested to see if they do actually make any real difference, or will they say, you've had a good year last year, maybe
which you did, yeah.
But after that, then I suppose two more changes. Well, one, Jiri Vesely has hired the former long-term coach of Berdych, Thomas Krupa. He'd been his coach until December 2014, so he's gonna be installed there as Vesely's coach for this year. Dimitrov took on, now it's probably somewhat old news now, but I guess it'd be his first full season with Devine in place. Now that's the long-term coach formerly of Del Potro. He was 10 years Del Potro's coach. He had basically parted ways with Rashid, his former coach. This is Dimitrov now, after Wimbledon, and since September he's been working with Devine. But we did see a change to Dimitrov in late last year. He certainly was a bit more consistent in his game.
Oh, he got a new mat as well.
Oh yeah,
that's going to perk anyone up.
It certainly would. Miss Sharapova is part of his camp now as well.
Well, isn't that the ex?
Oh yeah, sorry, you're right.
Nicole Scherzer.
It is indeed.
In there.
That's right.
I'll be looking forward to seeing a bit of side court highlights of her watching the matches.
Well, she's used to sort of travelling around, and
absolutely.
She's former girlfriend of Lewis Hamilton, of course. Exactly. So she's used to being part of a sort of a travelling crew of the entourage of a big name. I mean, he's not going to have the same, I suppose, weight in his sport as Lewis Hamilton. But
no, not quite. Oh, you could though. I mean, he could if he just knuckled down and got to it. He potentially could, but
That final against Strikey is there.
yeah, disappointing that he couldn't finish that off. But
it'll be interesting to see what he takes with him now into Australia, namely her.
yeah, who wouldn't either?
Absolutely. Just getting to Del Potro, interestingly enough.
There's a blast in the past.
Yeah, former world number 4, and he hasn't played a single match since March 2015. I thought I'd just maybe a quick recap through the unfortunate last few years. I suppose at the moment there's no return date set, but he has eyed January, February 2016 as when he
popped up on my Twitter feed with a picture on the beach training away.
He's keeping the fans updated, but I mean, this is, I suppose, what you're looking at for him. First injured January 2010, requiring an operation. Reoccurrence in February 2012 after having trouble from ongoing trouble for a number of months. So he required surgery at that stage, again on the wrist. And then he withdrew from the first round of the Australian Open this time last year, requiring further surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 5 years really of pain for Del Potro, of constant injury and recovery and rehab. You'd like to see, he's outside the top 500 now. It doesn't take much more than a small bit of consistency and obviously gain an entrance to the big events to get sift through most of that. But
yeah, it depends on his fitness and how much practice he's had a chance to have during those surgeries. But any player that can insult Murray's ma on court is a champ by my books.
Oh, controversial.
Look forward to seeing him back on court.
Hearing him back on court. So yeah, that's sums up coach changes and certainly.
Yeah, I suppose November, December is a time for that, for people to be changing coaches during the downtime.
It is.
And we'll see how that affects players' games at the start of this season.
Absolutely will.
I guess the important one will be Federer now. That's going to be the one to keep an eye on.
You'd expect, though, I suppose, with his change to his schedule, and Federer is his own man, it's probably not going to have a huge effect on how he plays. But some small tweaks just might be the difference between him maybe winning games and losing games at this stage of his career as well.
Yeah, I can't remember if he released that kind of very limited schedule. He has a very limited schedule for this season.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he released that before or after the coaching change. I wonder did the new coach have any kind of influence on his in that?
That's true.
Basically telling him, you haven't got a chance in the clay this season, lad.
Leave it alone.
Skip it.
Leave it alone.
Conserve your energy.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. We'll just move on to some injury reports because I guess Australian Open is just about to start and there's still a few lads sick. And I guess it's relevant for anyone, not even just our betting system, for anyone who's betting to keep an eye on injuries. So I have a quick run down through this. We have Range still possibly with back problems. He did report back problems back as early as December. But he says, I don't think twice about it and it doesn't weigh on me mentally. I think he's okay at the moment. He played very well, as I said, in the 250 2 weeks ago.
Which is an ideal warm-up for someone with an injury that you can kind of track.
It's just something to be concerned about.
Yep.
Gilles Simon, potentially not 100% fit for the Australian Open. He had an interesting quote during the Kooyong Open, which I think was like an exhibition kind of tournament last week. He said, if the Australian Open started tomorrow, I would not be there. But we have 5 days left and I'll try to be as close as possible to 100% fit. My tennis level is good. That's not what you really want to be saying. Like, basically, 5 days ago, he said if the Australian Open started tomorrow, he's not going to be there. That's not good.
How much prep do you really need? So,
well, I mean, in 5 days, how's he going to go from not 100% to 100%? That's, Simone maybe not so fit for the Oz Open, so keep an eye on him.
Yep.
Monfils withdrew from the Hopman Cup with a leg injury. I don't know if that was a bit of a
cop-out.
A bit of a cop-out, possibly. Anderson withdrew from Shanghai due to a knee problem. He was doing off-season training in Florida and he seemed to have done something to his knee. When asked, the decision was taken, keeping in mind the Australian Open, he said, yeah, absolutely. He withdrew basically
preservation
to be fit. Exactly, yeah. Which is fair enough for him. Kyrgios, interesting enough, requires daily Achilles tendon treatment since his retirement from Kooyong. Now, again, I have a suspicion that that's a bit of a...
playing the game a little bit.
Bit of a cop-out for Kooyong. Again, that was an exhibition tournament. He probably wanted to get out of there, but by midweekend, prepare for Australian Open. Sock, obviously, he retired after 22 minutes in his final against Agut. Again, flu. I mean, how long is it going to take him to get over that? He was in a pretty bad way, though. He apparently, pre-match, he knew he wasn't going to make it through the whole game, and he retired after 22 minutes. So, Sock doesn't look so good. He's probably, out of all the guys that had flu, like Federer had it, a couple of other guys had it, Sock seems to be the guy who still has it lingering.
Yeah,
so hopefully, hopefully he'll be okay for Oz Open. I suppose then the last guy is Tsonga. He did have an issue with his arm last week. He said, I didn't play last week because I had a problem with my arm. but I'm feeling better now. I'm feeling good. I had a good break, practice hard, so I hope I'll be ready for this week.
That sounds positive enough, I think. I mean, if your arm is at you and you've been practicing hard, it's enough. You would assume that it's not going to repeat itself. You'd like to think anyway.
I haven't heard anything about it since. No. He didn't use it as an excuse again when he lost to a gut last week, so I think Tsonga should be okay. Hope he is a powerful player. I'd like to see him do well in the Australian Open.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on to, I think we're going to have a look at the press conference reports, just the top players, really. Mm-hmm. Did you get a chance to see any of the press conferences at all? Or?
I've only seen a few, not a huge amount.
Yeah. And there wasn't much to be said. Djokovic came on, did his usual thing where he gives out chocolates to the press. Apparently there's a tradition every first media event of the year, he gives out chocolates. This year was some shitty fucking vegan, gluten-free, taste-free, I presume, crap.
Harsh.
Not a fan of that kind of diet, but that's what he gave out.
He's trying to, I suppose, broaden people's minds.
He's just trying to kiss ass, basically.
Yeah.
Lick ass. It's a weird thing with Djokovic. Like, I think he tries too hard to be a nice guy. I think he's aware that, in any match, Djokovic against Federer, Djokovic against Nadal, Djokovic against Murray, the crowd are always for his opponent. Always. I can't think of a player in the top 50 that the crowd would be with Djokovic against. Just the crowd.
Maybe Russell.
Maybe him. Yeah, everybody hates that.
Nick Kyrgios. Who knows?
I think the crowd would still be behind Kyrgios against Djokovic. I really do.
Just because they know he's someone that might be able to do something unpredictable.
Until Kyrgios opens his mouth and says something stupid, and then it gets a bit shitty. But so there's lots of talk in the press conference about can he do the calendar slam, get all four slams, and he's been very hesitant to kind of predict that he will. He saying things like, it's only the beginning of the season, it's too early to talk about it, whether I can or cannot. Hopefully I can play many matches. If I'm able to do the same or better as 2015, sure. Honestly, as I said, it's just the beginning. He just doesn't want to put himself down for,
Yeah.
Of course, he could potentially do the Golden Slam, which would be the 4 slams, and Olympic gold. That would be something else. But I think Steffi Graf is the only player to have done that. Even in the between men's and women's games. Steffi Graf, 1988. That'd be some achievement.
It certainly would.
Yeah. Murray then at his press conference, he was grilled about his child.
as expected. I think we discussed that on the last podcast.
Yeah,
anyway,
and he reiterated again. He has no problem if the pops out of the oven before the final. He's leaving. He's gone. So yeah, that to me that puts a question mark.
An interesting buy for anyone who got to take advantage, wouldn't it? Really,
absolutely. That for me puts a question mark over Murray maybe doing well in this tournament. It could affect him in no way whatsoever, but if it does happen, I mean, he's out of there. Absolutely, there's no question about it.
Yeah, and the baby isn't due till Feb, but we all know that these things are nature can be controlled.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, when nature calls.
Federer, he confirmed that his flu is completely gone. He was a bit iffy there against when he lost to Raonic. He used that as a bit of excuse, which I thought was a bit cheeky of him. In the post-match interview, he said, well, I had a flu, so if I'd been 100%, I might have beaten it. Basically, I'm paraphrasing there, but...
yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that, when you lose, if you'd won, you wouldn't have even mentioned it.
No, exactly, yeah. But, he says he's 100% now, no flu symptoms. And then Nadal had a weird press conference. There wasn't much said. I think Nadal is sick of talking about 2015. Absolutely
I would say so. I think it's just a case of new year. Hopefully, try and right the wrongs of the last year. But
because when people talk about, people interview Djokovic, they're always talking about the future. They're talking about 2016 and talking about can you do this, can you do this, can you do that, can you break this record, can you break that record. When people interview Nadal, it's like, oh man, you had a shit last year. Do you think you're going to be able to
where can you improve? How
exactly? Just it's always kind of negative with Nadal, and he seemed to he wasn't in a great mood during that conference anyway. So what about the big lads? 2016. What are the prospects? What are the goals for each? I think it's going to be a great season because I think all the players, especially the top 5 and even beyond, they all have goals and things to achieve this year.
Well, tennis is a really exciting sort of sport at the moment. I mean, I think it was, I suppose, emphasised by the fact like ATP obviously got very carried away there last week, and they brought out their calendars for 2017 and 18.
Did they?
Before 20? Yes, they've released a calendar for the next 3 years of ATP tour calendars are now available.
What tournaments are scheduled?
Yeah, the whole thing. It's all done.
Didn't see that.
Yeah, it's been announced, and Apparently 2015 was basically a record-breaking year for viewing across the world, etc., etc. And I mean,
It's good to hear.
it is good to hear, and I think that is testament to the fact that it's at the top end of it. There's an awful lot going on. They're expecting a lot from different players. It is a one-man sport from the point of view that no one can beat Djokovic, but at the same time, there's an awful lot of other battles going on in there. And
let's talk a bit with Djokovic, because I think one thing people seem to forget is that in 2011, I mean, he did the exact same things he did in 2015. He won 3 slams.
He did.
And now he only made it to the semi-final of the French Open, but directly after that, for the next 3 years, he only won 1 slam per year. So just because he's won 3 slams last year
doesn't mean he's necessarily going to do it again.
I mean, everyone seems to be geared up for him to just absolutely dominate completely, and get the 4 slams, get the calendar slam.
Do you see it being different?
No, I see him getting 2 slams. I think he's going to win Australian Open, no problem.
On the back of what he's just come off, I think it's going to take a change of surface now for there to be any difference, I think, in Djokovic, really, isn't it?
I think he's a dead cert for Australian Open. I think he's probably dead cert for the US Open as well.
So you think Roland Garros again is going to find another?
Well, I think it's more interesting there. I think Nadal is absolutely eyeing that up as a platform to return.
And Roger Federer for Wimbledon.
Yeah, Federer for Wimbledon. Yeah, I think he's eyeing that up as well, big time.
So you think these players are going to be able to call these? They've called a slam at the start of the year, and you see them basically.
It's funny because Federer has basically done that. He's said
he has. Yeah,
he's basically like skipping the Roland Garros and just
whole clay court season.
And just obviously eyeing the Olympics as well. But he's obviously set his market down for Wimbledon. And maybe, and Federer's going to be there for the Australian Open and the US Open. He's always in there. Like he had a great year last year, despite not winning, a slam. He still had a great year.
Basically one poor result against Ramos Vinales in Shanghai, and other than that, it was untouchable. Yeah, it was probably it's a blemish you probably want to forget, because there wasn't any excuses offered or anything. It was just one of those games. It just didn't go his way. But otherwise, he was very consistent throughout.
Plenty of semi-finals, plenty of finals. You can't write him off.
Djokovic reached a final in every tournament he played, didn't he? I mean,
he was unstoppable.
You're right, though. People are assuming, and like you said, 2011 was a very good year for Djokovic, and people probably do forget that. It's like, he was kind of only okay for the next 4 years, whereas he was consistent to a point, but nowhere near the kind of Djokovic we see today that people are expecting to.
There was 1 slam a year for 3 years after that, and it could be a repeat of that this year. I put him down for two slams.
I suppose, if anything, Djokovic in his own mind is probably thinking, without saying it, he'd like to be made. He wants those 4.
Absolutely, of course he does.
So to go backwards on last year,
this is probably one of the best opportunities he has of doing it.
Yeah,
you have Murray, who will be out for 5 weeks,
which will affect us definitely again. He's
out for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
you've got Federer, who
he's ruled himself out.
He had a great 2015, but exactly. He had a great 2015, but the time is ticking against him. You have Nadal, who absolutely has to prove himself. He's still not in it. I mean, he beat him 6-1, 6-2 in a couple of weeks ago.
It's a very, very easy win.
You have Wawrinka, who is still very hot and cold.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you got Nishikori, who still has doubts over his fitness. I mean, if this is the year to win 4 slams, this really is it. If
there has ever been a year that Djokovic is going to actually have a good chance of winning 4 slams, and I suppose circumstances are very favourable for him to do it. But like you said, it remains to be seen. Like the clay court season could see someone else emerge as the new king of clay, because if it's not going to be Rafa, it's going to be someone else. Hopefully, I'd like to see someone challenge Djokovic, really challenge Djokovic. On at least on one particular surface. I mean, some players are far more suited. Like Rafa was the king of clay. Federer was always kind of the all-rounder. I think looking at Djokovic now, certainly on the hard courts, he's very hard to deal with. But obviously, he's going to want to try and prove it on all next. I'd love to see there only being, if he only won 1, I'd be thrilled, because it really opened the game up certainly for the following season as well.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of happy Djokovic didn't win the French Open last year. Because at least now he has something to really go for. He's
got a motivation, but sometimes that motivation and that pressure can lead to, it can lead to poor form as well, because expectation can drive you. Yeah. If you're winning, it's fine. If you're not, it can be the opposite.
Well, I think the difference now between 2011 and 2016 is that, after 2011, maybe Djokovic was still a little bit immature.
Well, he was a lot younger.
4 years later, I think he has his head firmly on his shoulders, and
he looks like a different player as well. I mean, he's determined now.
I think mentally, I can't see him just going back to 1 slam victory this year. But
no, neither.
I think 2 would still be an okay year. Obviously, it would be a failure in his mind, probably, and a failure in a lot of people's minds. But I put him down for 2. I'm going to call it now. 2 slams for Djokovic, Federer for Wimbledon, and then hopefully something funny and fancy and cool
at Roland Garros. Well, I'd personally love to see Rafa refine. Obviously,
so would I. I'd like him as well.
I'd
See him as well. But yeah, it's gonna be tough for him. So Murray, obviously, he's gonna have a very unpredictable year. I mean, like, he's number 2 in the world now. I think he's how old is Murray now? Is he 28?
I think that's 28, 29.
I mean, he has to. This year, he has to step up and start really pushing Djokovic for that.
Has the baby come at the wrong time? Do you think?
I think so, man. I really do think that. What a time to have a child. And look, you look at Federer, and he has managed his family life perfectly. I mean, he has, how many Sprogs has he got?
4 or something.
Is it something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Never affected him, but that's just Federer.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he hasn't got 4 kids. I'm
pretty sure he has a couple.
I think he has a. Yeah,
I'm not creepy enough to know how many kids tennis players
have.
Thankfully, it's a good thing. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But this is Murray's first child. He's reiterated again and again and again how important his wife and child is.
Look, fair play to him. He's obviously it's commendable, but at the same time, it's like you said, it's a time where Murray really, as world number 2, it's a huge thing for him to be at world number 2. And if he wants to, I mean, I don't know if he genuinely believes with Djokovic as the number 1 that he's actually ever going to get number 1. But will he be number 2 for long enough? That's the other thing,
Djokovic is pretty much double the points ahead of Murray. So
exactly, it would take a huge injury for Djokovic and a serious amount of time out of the game to have any chance of actually reeling in the number 1 for Murray. It's like when Tiger Woods stopped playing golf. How long did it take for anyone to get near Woods?
I think it's supposed to be. We talked about Federer. How I suppose a successful year for Federer will be to win a slam. I mean, it will be just one. Just even Wimbledon will be good.
It's funny. I think any player you could say that, but yeah, true.
Yeah, that's true. But I think Fed has one more in him. If he doesn't do it this year, it's going to be tough to see him to do it in 2017. Yeah. But that's a long way down the road. Wawrinka, then, same thing with him.
He can challenge He can
be there or thereabouts, and he just needs to be on a really good week. And for Djokovic and the other guys to be on a really bad week, and he can get in there,
It's probably a little bit unfair though, because I mean, it's not to say Djokovic in last year was doing his best to win that game, and he didn't offer any excuses when he lost. So I mean, at the same time, it does need to be favourable. But I think it's more about the player themselves. I mean, I think it was obvious certainly from what I've gathered when Djokovic was playing Nadal there in the final recently. It was a case of Nadal really not playing the way he can play in that game. It seemed as though his game was affected by the very fact that he was playing against Djokovic in the first place. That kind of stuff, it's obviously there's a mental thing there when a player's playing. It's like when teams used to play against Manchester United under Ferguson, and those last few minutes they could play well right up until the very end, but they always knew in those last few minutes something can happen here. And people know Djokovic has a way of 2-0 down against Kevin Anderson. I think that was at Roland Garros, was it? Or was it at Wimbledon when he was down 2 sets against Anderson and Djokovic came back and won 3-2 in the end quite comfortably, but he was on the ropes for 2 sets against, and that's the kind of player up against.
Last thing, Djokovic has incredible fitness. He's probably the fittest player out of the current batch of players.
Absolutely.
Whereas when you look at Federer, for him to get to a final, he has to at a slam. You're looking at 5, 6, 7 5-set matches.
It's a lot of games.
I mean, Federer, he seems to do well in the early stages. I think that's the reason why he does okay in the first round, second round, quarterfinal, semi-final, pretty much. But then when it gets to a final, he's had,
he's played so much tennis over the last week.
Much tennis that I don't think he can handle it anymore, And then he in front of him is Djokovic, who's incredibly fit and
has cruised through all his games probably as well. Far less amount of hours on court than the previous week.
It's a tough out life for the old Fed man.
It is, but I tell you, he's made a fairly damn good career out of it, and he looks like fairly certain that he's certainly going to win at least a few big tournaments this year, be it Masters, ATP 500s, and potentially the big slam at Wimbledon is there.
I'm looking forward to seeing him play at Wimbledon.
Without a doubt.
He'll be well rested for it and hopefully up for winning. Any other players of note this year for you? Who's going to be standout? Who's going to make the most move?
I'm looking forward to seeing Dimitrov this season. I think Dimitrov is going. I know it was a bit of I think lessons can be learned from him in that Troika match. I think that hopefully Goffin will turn around, get back. I think.
Yeah, I mean that. See, I'd almost be willing to just kind of give him that loss. First match back of the season. It's always going to be an iffy time. I hope he's going to. I have him down to do fairly well at the Oz Open.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think, and once he's just gets back to get a few matches underneath his belt, I think he's absolutely betting material for us again.
Yeah, Raonic could very, very easily become a fairly reliable player if he can keep the injuries away and can maybe show a bit of consistency, Raonic. But I'm looking forward to seeing Dimitrov right the wrongs of last year. He lost a lot of places. We discussed that in previous podcasts. I'd like to see him reel back in the top 10 because there's a serious player in there. He knows it. I think the tennis world knows it. But
well, I don't know. I think everybody knows except for him. Everyone wants him to do well.
I think last year is obviously a lot of personal stuff early last year that was affecting him. I mean, he needed to change a coach. He needed to almost probably change the way he was even looking at himself as a tennis player. He needs to start believing, like you said, believing in himself.
He needs to get off Twitter and Instagram. Too much of that shit going on.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot to be said about, when people say, oh, the sports person, they're not on Twitter, get them on Twitter. I think a lot of people make a conscious decision and say, life is short as a professional sports person. I don't need distractions when I'm trying to actually make a livelihood. And they say, well, we can leave the social media stuff alone until I retire. Let's just focus on the sport. And fair play, because a lot of people are fairly caught up in, tweeting from their private jets and from their behind the dressing rooms. Let's just focus on the sport. Fair play to them. That's the way to do it, maybe.
Yeah, at the same time, I wonder, does that kind of stuff come down to sponsorship? You have players signing $50 million deals for sponsorship. And I'm sure social media exposure just completely adds to their value as a product, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if the likes of Adidas want to see, Neymar, Messi and Suarez sitting in a dressing room with more Adidas logos or Nike logos or whatever around the room as possible, it's only going to be good for the brand.
I heard interesting, I don't know if you know Burditch.
Yeah.
He was previously sponsored by H&M.
Oh.
Believe it or not. Obviously wearing some very fancy shirts and stuff. But he's moved over to Adidas
okay.
as of 2 weeks ago. So no more fancy shirts from Burditch. So he's wearing more conservative, proper tennis wear.
We probably need a segment maybe on next year's first podcast of the year after the coach changes. We'll go with the endorsement changes.
Yeah, there actually was a lot of different guys moving over to different brands. I think Nishikori re-signed. There was lots of that shit going on. It's the time for it. Just as the new season's about to kick in.
Yeah,
everyone
invest in the player they see as being the man for that year to drive the brand. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I suppose Nishikori would be a key one because the Asian swing's gotten so popular now.
Yeah, he's like the leading star there. Yeah, so
no better man to get on board.
Who else is going to be making a big move this year? I think it could finally be the time for Kyrgios to man up, literally mature a little bit, and get his head screwed on and really start making a move. I think that there's been signs in the last few months that he could absolutely be a top player. I was watching a documentary there with Hewitt, who's obviously retiring. This is his last Australian Open and his last tournament. And Hewitt really sees Kyrgios as being the future of Australian tennis. Absolutely.
Tennis,
And I think possibly Hewitt's work ethic, which is unbelievable. If you want to search online for the kind of training he does before a tournament, I think it's rubbed off a little bit on Kyrgios. There was a few interviews there where Kyrgios was basically saying what an inspiration Hewitt was, and for Kyrgios to see Hewitt just really knuckle down, even at his age, and just basically probably blow the other guys out of the water when it comes to fitness and getting on the court early every morning and practicing. I think it's pretty good for Kyrgios to see. So I think he's going to mature, and I think he could make a serious move this year. It'd be interesting to see how he does in the Australian Open now this week.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost moving into the Australian bracket there, which we will now in a sec. But before that, we will discuss very quickly. We have a bet for the round one. And surprise, surprise, the first bet of the season for net profit bets is Bernard Tomic, 1.242.
I don't know what to say.
well, as we were saying, this time last year, if you'd asked me would I be putting money on Tomic as a first bet of the season, I would have told you to go fuck yourself.
Or any bet.
Well, especially not for Tomic. He was pretty much blacklist all last year.
He was.
But in hindsight, I mean, he's ranked where he is for a reason. He's absolutely unbettable in 250s and 500s. But in Masters and Slams, I think he's worth, taking a look at. And I went through all 64 matches there for round one, and he really was a standout passer. There was a couple of other passes for our system. If you want to check out more about our system, go to netprofitbets.com, by the way. There's a bit of an explanation there about how we choose our bets. In a nutshell, we bet on absolute banker favourites. But go to the website to find out a bit more information about that. So there was our system did spit out a few passes, but I think Tomic was definitely the clear one, the clear winner that we went for.
And it's interesting though, because as much as we've talked in the past about not being able to bet on him, etc., it's funny because in a tournament like this, he's basically said himself that this is one where he needs the ranking points. And we talked about mindsets and the motivations in the past. And basically, he's almost done the hard work for us in that he's passed it. And normally we'd say, oh, Tomic, we can't bet on him. He's unpredictable. he is unpredictable, but we know it's fairly likely that he's going to go at least 3 to 4 rounds into this tournament with relative ease, you would have thought. So,
Yeah, I was. I mean, he has ranking points to defend here. I mean,
He
like
does.
it's his home slam. He generally does okay here. I'm just going to pull up his.
He went pretty deep last year.
Yeah, so just looking at his. I mean, he generally does kind of okay here at the Australian Open. He got to the round of 16 last year.
Yeah.
He lost to Thomas Burditch. I mean, that's nothing to be ashamed of.
No, he was ranked 7 at the time, Burditch, and Tomic was ranked 66. So, I mean, it was still very, very...
It seems like he had a couple of good wins there. I mean,
Yeah.
he beat Cole Screwer and he beat Grot, who's a big serve in Aussie. So the funny thing was last weekend in Sydney, he pretty much laid his marker down and he said, "Look, I really want to be at the Australian Open fresh, ready. I want to go as deep as I can." He reiterated that he has ranking points to defend.
He did.
He's definitely up for this tournament. The problem with Tomic when you bet him is you never know if he's going to tank, if he's there, if he's motivated. In this case, he's definitely motivated. So that's why I have no problem betting on Tomic for this bet.
When I've watched highlights of Tomic in the past, and don't get me wrong, I've only really watched games where he's won just out of pure interest. And you're looking at a different player to the player you look at when you see the result. He's lost a game, an ATP 250, an ATP 500, and you look through it and you kind of just go, he just couldn't have been bothered.
Yeah.
But then you look at the highlights of the games he's won, and he looks glorious.
Yeah.
Like, it looks so easy for him. But yet he obviously thinks and is very open and honest, certainly this season, about the reasons why he's not doing what he should be doing in the smaller
He's
games.
one of the most prolific tankers in the game.
He
I
is.
mean, we've talked before about his nickname of Tomic the Tank Engine because he
Very
just
apt.
loves to tank.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's very frustrating from a betting perspective, especially for our system where we go heavy. We go in with heavy bankroll percentages. And it's always scary putting money on Tomic, but I'm fairly confident now. He's against Istomin. Again, when Tomic heard that Istomin was his round one opponent, he said that's a favourable
He
draw.
literally passed out packing his bags there and then
exactly.
to the competition.
He really fancies it. And looking at their head-to-head, I mean, Istomin did win their last matchup, and it was on hardcore, but it was 2014. Tomic was ranked 72 at the time. Istomin was ranked 41. I think Tomic is a much more improved player than he was
Without
in 2014, whereas Istomin is just one of those guys who's going to hang around forever in mid 50s or whatever.
And
around
hanging
there.
around is almost going backwards in tennis. When you look at
Absolutely.
the kind of ranking points that you're looking at there's not an awful lot that you have to do to get back. I mean, I think it's happened to Del Potro before that he wasn't playing for a while. He was ranked 120 or something, and then all of a sudden he was back in the top 30 again.
Yeah.
It's just if you're winning games, you'll be in thereabouts.
And on the flip side of that head-to-head, I mean, Tomic is 3-1 up against Istomin. He actually beat him 3 times that he played before that. So, I mean, he knows how to beat him. Tomic has beaten him on clay and hard, so
If you even
I think
look,
he has
I think
the game to beat him.
Even Istomin, if you actually look at the type of players he's been playing against, I don't think he's bet someone in the top 40 in the last 12 months anyway.
No, it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
I looked at that myself there now. I can't quite remember, but
I think he's bet someone maybe 40 to 50 or
Yeah.
40 to 60.
Oh, he
Once
certainly
or
hasn't.
twice last year, max. And every other opponent he's had has been ranked 80 to 150. And even then, if you look at the odds he's winning at, he's winning the dead certers and not even winning all of them. So I don't think Tomic is basically already looking at the second round here. And that's not to say that's not to say I don't think that he's going to have enough concentration to win. He knows what he can do on his day. He's not ranked number, I think, 17 in the world at the moment.
Tomic's 18, I think.
Is he?
Roughly there, 17, 18, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's not ranked there for no reason. He knows where the points are to be won. And if he went to rank round 16 last year, that's basically 3 wins consecutively in Australia. He'll be expecting at least that this year.
I think he's well up for this.
Yeah.
I'm happy putting the money on him. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but I'm happy to put my money on Tomic. And that's where our bet is. We're on Twitter. We posted this bet yesterday, actually.
We did.
Right, we're almost out of time. Just have a very, very quick rundown through the bracket. Maybe we'll start from the winner backwards. Darren, what a tough question. Who do you have down as the winner of Australian Open 2016?
Nick Kyrgios. No, I'm joking. I have, of course, Novak Djokovic.
I'm down for Djokovic as well. There's not much point hanging around on that point. I mean, he's absolute favourite. I mean, let's have a quick look at his. What are you down as his route from his opening round? What's your path?
The path I have here is he obviously beats
Well, he's against
Hyun Chung, one of the biggest.
He's a rising star now, in fairness, but actually will be an interesting match. Probably one of the more interesting opening matches.
And probably one of the most interesting, in my mind, most interesting one he's going to have. I have him to play Ivan Dodig from Croatia in the second game.
Yeah.
Andreas Seppi in the third game.
I have that as well.
I have Gilles Simon in the fourth game. I have Kai Nishikori in the fifth, and then I have Roger Federer in the next game, and then he's final against Andy Murray.
we differ slightly there. I mean, I have Dodic, Seppi. I actually have Pospisil in there. I think he's going to have a decent run for some reason.
Don't really rate Pospisil myself, but it'd be interesting to track the differences there.
Yeah, well, I do have Djokovic dispatched him quite easily. Then I have Tsonga in the quarterfinals there against Djokovic. I think Tsonga looks really, as long as his arm is not acting up, I think he's got a very strong match at the moment, and I have him against Djokovic in the quarterfinals. And then in the semi-finals, I have him against Federer, which we agree on.
Yeah.
Semis, yeah. And then Djokovic, I have going... Oh, no, yeah, sorry. And then the final, I've got Djokovic and Wawrinka.
Yeah, I have Stan the man to be beaten by Rafa, and then Rafa to be beaten by Andy Murray. Now, that's... I personally would love it if Andy Murray decides in that game to pop off and we get Rafa through to play against Novak in the final. But
what are your two semi-finals?
My semi-finals are Rafa, Andy Murray, and Djokovic, Federer.
Okay, so we agree on Djokovic, Federer, but I have Wawrinka and Murray in the.
And to be honest, I'm gonna say there I am being biased by having Rafa and Wawrinka and going with Rafa. It's more I'd love to see it happen. I do think it's going to be a tough enough game, but I do think Rafa is playing above most players other than Djokovic at the moment. And I think, again, as we said, mindset wise, I think Rafa's going to say in his own mind, I can beat Stan. I think he...
On hard, I don't know. I don't think Nadal... Well, I'm sure he believes he can, but I don't think Nadal can beat...
You don't think he can? I think he can.
Yeah.
I definitely think he can be. I can see Rafa winning it, but as I said, I'll admit I'm being a little bit biased in that judgment, and I could look at it again on a different day and maybe say, yeah, Stan probably will do it, but I'm happy enough to go with Rafa at the moment. I think Rafa will be looking to make a point in this first stand of the year.
So who do you have in your quarterfinals then? Just go through them quickly.
In my quarterfinals, I have Novak to play Nishikori. I have Roger against Marin Cilic. I have Rafa, Stan, and I have Ferrer, Murray. I know we've got quite a bit of difference there.
Yeah, a little bit different there. I have Nadal, Wawrinka, Isner, Murray. I think Isner could do a decent run. He loves the fast hard courts. Djokovic, Tsonga, and Federer, Berdych. I have Berdych doing a decent run there. I know you kind of disagree with that. He meets Kyrgios in the third round.
And that's where, I think that's where
we differ slightly.
I do fancy, I think you were talking about seeing the best in Nick Kyrgios, and I think that's the kind of game now where Kyrgios will consider it a test for himself, and I'd like to see him come through that. If he just keeps his big mouth shut and plays tennis, I think he might be able to do it.
Yeah, no, I really hope Kyrgios does well. I hope Hewitt does well. I actually have him do it. Maybe it's just a sentimental part of me.
I think it might be a little bit, but you never know.
I've Hewitt getting into the fourth round and getting knocked out by Isner getting to the quarterfinals. So I feel it beating a few people there and getting through. But I hope he does well. It is a swan song. He's been a pretty cool player.
He's a cool guy. He's got a lovely wife.
He's got a cracking wife.
He's got it all.
Yeah, he pretty much does. Yeah.
Maybe he can finish it all off with a Grand Slam win.
That
really would be the dream.
That'd be pretty impressive, man.
I'll tell you,
I'd like to see that.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Kyrgios, is it even possible to have Kyrgios and Hewitt in the final?
No, I don't think so. No, they'll meet each other before that.
Let me see. No, I don't think it is.
I think they'd meet each other.
But still, I'd like to see Kyrgios against Hewitt. That'd be pretty cool. He's already playing against Noz in his opening round against Duckworth.
Yeah.
So, look, if he loses that match, you can be fitting that you got knocked out by a fellow was.
I've got him to win that game, but I have Ferrer in his next match, and I think Ferrer is... I find it hard to see Hewitt beating Ferrer. I think Ferrer...
I absolutely see Hewitt beat Ferrer. I think Ferrer hasn't started this season well. He didn't end last season too well, and on hard court, he's very... can be a bit iffy. I think Hewitt could run rings around him.
Be interesting to see. He's a bit older, a little bit older. Then again, Ferrer's not a young man either. But
spring chicken himself.
No, be interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay. I think that just about wraps it up. So our bet is there on Twitter. If you want to check it out, we'll be tweeting our bets daily. We're going to hope for about 2, 3, maybe even 4 bets.
I'd like to think we're going to get 3 bets certainly at this, and that's in line with what we expect at a slam.
Yeah,
I think
we were saying the Australian Open might be a little bit slower in regards to bets as the other slams because it is the start of the season. It's a good time to be extra cautious.
But there's an awful lot of matches.
There is an awful lot of matches.
We'd like to think we'll be able to find a couple more passes in there. And basically free money for everyone who gets on board.
Free money, get on board. Check us out at netprofitbets.com. Check us out on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're everywhere in your face.
But the best place to go really is follow us on Twitter. Set the notification. Have a read of the website, netprofitbets.com, just to get an idea what it is. But that's, it's made us money last year, and we're hoping it's going to make us a lot more of it this year.
Yeah, actually, just a quick update. We ended the year with a return on investment of 3,194%. So
I haven't heard of a number of percentage that big before. Could it be?
So yeah, that if you've been following us last year, you could be sitting on quite a bit of cash.
Good.
And we're hoping to repeat that this year. So netprofitbets.com. From there, you can follow us on Twitter. You can listen to our podcasts. You can see our results from last year. You can read our blog, and you can contact us and give us grief if you want. Look forward to that.
Or you can give us just, thanks for the free bets, free money. There's no charge here. We're giving free bets out.
It's all good. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll be back for the next Master Tournament.
We will.
Whenever that is, I haven't actually checked. But until then, enjoy the Australian Open and enjoy making some money with us.
Good luck.
Cheers. Bye.
See ya.